Cam Redden, and this is your homecoming on 2SSR FM.
You would have heard in our news bulletins earlier throughout the day that 3 people now have been treated for Legionnaire's disease in Kogarah. 3 people, elderly, the 2 men, one in their 60s, one in his 70s, and also a woman aged 85. All 3 admitted to hospital last week and are now being treated for Legionnaire's disease. 1 remains in intensive care, all are currently in stable conditions. And the interesting news today, reported by the Leader, that the Public Health Unit was notified yesterday, March the 31st, that a cooling tower at the hospital may be the source of this outbreak. The tower was checked monthly, returned a positive test for Legionella after it was routinely tested on March the 22nd. Professor Mark Ferson is the Director of Public Health with South Eastern Sydney Local Health District. He's good enough to give me a few moments on the show this afternoon. Professor, g'day.
Yeah, g'day, Cameron. No problem.
Thanks for your time. I do appreciate it. We want to know, for those of us who aren't as familiar with Legionnaire's disease, myself included, it is a rare form of pneumonia, is that right?
Yeah, so it's not a common disease. We get 60 to 80 cases per year in the whole of New South Wales, and this seems to be a bit of the season for it. So it's a form of pneumonia that can be really severe in some people. Some people suffer a mild illness, so if it gets bad, then not only the lungs aren't working, but sometimes the kidneys and maybe the liver and other parts aren't working so well either.
So this can be rather serious as well, life-threatening?
It can be life-threatening in some people, that's right.
Now, we mentioned before, 3 of these people are elderly that have been admitted to St George Hospital. Are there any particular demographics that should be more concerned about Legionnaire's disease?
Legionnaire's disease was originally described in American legionnaires who are like, returned soldiers, veterans, and they tended to be elderly men who smoked a lot. The more we know about the disease, we know that, that's the spectrum has extended a bit to milder cases in younger people. But still, if your immune system's not working, if your lungs aren't working very well, particularly if you've been a heavy smoker or you've got underlying lung disease, then that does make you seem to make people a bit more susceptible to it.
I mentioned earlier, we now know that one of the cooling towers at the hospital has come back with a positive test of Legionella. Are we any closer to working out exactly where this bacteria comes from? Because in a hospital, you would think of all places, these would be the most checked.
Yes, there is a regular maintenance system at the hospital. So the hospital cooling towers have been maintained very well generally. This has been the first positive result that we know of, and so there were clear results in January and February, and then this out of the blue high Legionella count in March, and the cooling tower has been thoroughly cleaned since then. So we don't actually understand how that's happened, but we know that that they're, the Legionella organisms are natural organisms in sort of watery environments, and so maybe some droplets have landed in the cooling tower that have already got the organism in them, and that's triggered off the multiplication in this particular cooling tower. We're also looking at, so we're not blaming the hospital cooling tower
absolutely.
by any means, and we've had environmental health officers from our unit and from other units, and with the help of Kogarah Council, have looked at all the cooling towers in Kogarah municipality, and they've been inspected and tested and samples sent off to the lab to see whether there's other possibilities.
So you must be quite happy with the way that the response has been so far. I guess it has to be one of those things that we get to the bottom of pretty quickly, because I can imagine that with something as serious as this, you wouldn't want it to spread too far.
No, absolutely. No, it's been a very rapid response. We got notified. We heard about the cases very quickly. That just triggers our response anyway, and then the result from the cooling tower came to us very quickly, and we got on top of that as well.
Is there a likelihood that many more people would present with these sort of symptoms?
Look, I hope not, but it is possible. So we don't exactly know the source, and whether there's a source there that might still be putting out the Legionella, and so we're certainly got our eyes out for any other cases. But of course, people who've been in that neighbourhood just need to be aware. I mean, if people are well, they absolutely don't need to worry. So we worry. We'd be worried about people who would develop symptoms of pneumonia, which means fever and cough and shortness of breath. They need to go to their doctors. They might have something else, of course, but so people who get sick definitely need to be checked out. And we've advised doctors, general practitioners and hospital doctors as well, to be on the lookout for it, although, of course, they know about it now.
Fantastic. So if you're in doubt, go and get checked, I guess, is the message to take away.
Yes, and if you're well, don't worry about it. And the cooling tower at St George now has been thoroughly cleaned and decontaminated, so it's not an issue now. So that's important for people.
Fantastic. Professor Mark Ferson, appreciate your time. Keep up the good work.
Sure. Thank you very much. Thanks.
Professor Mark Ferson, he's the Director of Public Health with the South Eastern Sydney Local Health District. Busy day for him. We can see there it's a cause for concern. We heard earlier in the year around Town Hall as well that people were starting to show some symptoms of Legionnaire's disease, something we haven't heard about too often. Not the first outbreak we have seen in metropolitan Sydney. Back in 2011 was the most recent one. Before that, a few back in the mid to early 90s. It's not something that's unheard of, but it's something that we need to get a quick response together for, particularly when it's as close to home as this one seems to be.
Cam Redden, and this is Your Homecoming on 2SSR FM.